I mean, I'm in the exact same boat, which is why I literally started this podcast. My podcast, not yours. It was, I love life hacks. I love optimizations. And I feel like now that life is busier and we have a kid, I need to actually dedicate time to hone my skill. And so the way I've done that is I started a podcast solely for the purpose of going to find all the people that have all the hacks so that I can learn them all. I'm on a quest for all the hacks.
Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is ChooseFI.
You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
Let me share just a quick little story with you. The year is 2012, maybe 2013. And I stumble onto this website called lifehacker.com. And the idea just resonated with me. You could do something in a more optimized way. We all have these tiny little life hacks, I guess is kind of the umbrella term that was actually used. And, you know, a simple life hack would be control copy, control paste. You know, there's a lot of people that don't realize that control C and control V will save you years of your life in aggregate. Learn this one. That's a very simple one, but that's just the starting place. And I took that control C, control V with a zest for life and said, I'm going to solve this and I'm going to figure out every single thing that I don't know. And then, I don't know, something happened. Somewhere along the way, life got in the way. And some of the life hacks that I adopted, like they just kind of, you know, they aged in and I kept the ones that worked for me. And then I just stopped looking for new ones. And I've had this nagging doubt. No, you didn't come to the end. You just got lazy. What would it be like to pick up that energy that you had before life got in the way and go pursue that ongoing quest for all the life hacks? And with that, that really sets us up for today's episode. Our good friend, Chris Hutchins, who we've had on this, been featured on the show actually multiple times. He launched a podcast called All the Hacks. And Brad, we're going to be talking with him tonight, but I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yeah, this is really exciting to have Chris back. He was on 2 different episodes. He was on 71 and 121R. And 121R. Yeah, R for Roundup. You're very special here. How to get any job, right? That was probably one of the segments we've referred back to the most, just as like a game-changing segment as far as like my own mentality goes. Because I love things when you see it, you can never look at life the same way again in that regard. And How to Get Any Job was exactly that. So if you're listening to this, go back. And if you haven't heard 121R, please listen to that. I'm not going to spoil it for you. So yeah, this is exciting. Chris, like Jonathan said, he started up a podcast. I guess, Chris, what do you have? One trailer up live right now?
Yeah, we got one trailer, a few episodes getting recorded last week, this week, next week.
A few trailers? What is this? A blockbuster movie?
No, a few episodes.
No, one trailer.
Okay. Multiple episodes.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I'm an optimizer. Started collecting all these hacks and then life got in the way. You know, we had our first child. I've been working hard and I kind of realized I'd kind of fallen off the bandwagon of collecting all of these life hacks. And so I thought, what better way to find more and share with the world than start a podcast to go collect all the hacks? And the goal is just how do you upgrade your life and live a more exciting, fulfilling life without spending a lot more money and optimizing it all along the way.
I love that goal. And I wonder what your thoughts are on the intersection of accumulating all these hacks and simplicity, frankly, because I wonder if that isn't part of the goal also, which kind of ties into what Jonathan was saying, right? Like at first he had this burning desire to accumulate all these hacks and then it's okay, life intervenes, but maybe that is the ultimate goal, right? Like some aspect of simplicity. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the intersection of trying to learn more and get your life, optimized, automated, and simplicity.
I mean, the automated is a big one because if you can learn a new hack and put that hack on autopilot, then you don't have to think about it. You can go back to simplicity. But you mentioned, you listen to something and all of a sudden it just clicks. Once something clicks in life, you no longer have to think about it. So I find that hacks fall in 3 camps. You either click, it's just second nature to you. It's too much work and you never do it again, or you find some way to automate it. And so hopefully everything falls in there. If it clicks, oftentimes it becomes fun. I spend more time than the average person researching different award travel options, but not because I feel like I have to, but because I like to. And if you can find a way where optimization and excitement intersect, then it's a huge win for you, your family, and everything.
Well, I think what we'd like to do with this is let's establish the framework for the category. You gave us a sampling just now, but let's really flesh out the framework that we can start building on. And let's make this conversation interactive. We're going to focus probably the first piece or portion of this episode really around what you have uncovered and kind of give people a sense of the flavor, the types of things that you put the highest, which life hacks are really meeting that intersection method for you currently, and what are ones that are on your radar. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of open this up to the audience, and we'll kind of split the time between maybe some of the ones that really resonate with Brad and myself, but also maybe suggestions or questions from the audience tonight. So, Chris, with that, why don't we come back to this framework? You talked about that intersection. Let's go a little bit more big scale. Is there like another way to categorize the different types of life hacks that you are pursuing?
When I start to think about hacks, I think of different aspects of life. And so I just tried to break down what are the important parts of life. So for me, there's family, there's work, there's my finances, and there's the essential stuff, just shopping. There's travel, which is something that I think for many of us is a really big, important part of, everything. There's just managing your home. There's, within family, you could probably break it out into used to just be my relationship and my marriage, but now it's also parenting. And within self, just, mindfulness and health and, eating and all those things and exercise. Those are kind of the broad strokes when I think about, segmenting my life into a bunch of different categories. I've tried to align the way I think about looking for different life hacks and money hacks and parenting hacks in that same group.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I think through how I pursued these, my 2012, 2013 version, I think one of the things that I stumbled on, we'll just start with the obvious one right now, is really looking into life hacks is what led me to financial independence. It was some version of those. Being open to this idea that, you could do things in a slightly more optimized way led me to this early version. My phrase at the time was financial independence is quite literally the ultimate life hack. If what we're pursuing is like autonomy, mastery, freedom, if we want to be able to reclaim our most precious resource, our time, then if we achieve this financial independence goal, the game is fundamentally beaten. And so that was really like a calling card for what Brad and I, kind of were building over the last 4 years. And I would say I kind of got a little bit, to some degree, I feel like I narrowed my scope on that. How do I reach this? And because I remember, though, I was having a lot of fun looking at some of these other options that are out there, and I just haven't. So I guess we could start with finances, but since we do spend a lot of time talking about finances, why don't we either come back to that one, either in the middle or at the end, to kind of wrap this thing up? Why don't we talk about some of the other categories and maybe some high impact ones that are on your radar right now?
Yeah, I think one of the high impact on my radar right now, and for maybe many people, is something that we probably haven't done. I talked about shopping and travel. We've done a lot of shopping at home, and we've probably done a very small amount of travel. And, I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of credit cards and points, because I'm sure there's been episodes and Brad has a course. But I think travel is something that right now, everyone I talk to seems to be planning a trip somewhere. We're kind of towards the tail end of coming out of a really intense lockdown of almost a year and a half. And so, that's at least one that, I try to think about. And I try to think about it as break down the whole thing. It's like from the moment you book a trip to the moment you arrive at the hotel. And we could spend hours on just this. So I'll kind of leave it to you guys to tell me how deep to go or where to start.
Yeah, so we've definitely talked about travel rewards many times, as recently as just a handful of episodes ago. So episode 311, we did just less than a month ago. So yeah, I think we've covered that. And what's interesting, Jonathan, you talked about the ultimate life hack, right? We actually met through travel rewards in a kind of weird, circuitous method. So it's interesting that this is the one we're starting with. But travel rewards, yeah, I think we're good on that. And Chris, to your point, like we do have a course at ChooseFI.com/travel, so people can check that out. Talk about high value, obviously, is opening up very targeted credit cards to hopefully travel for close to free. So you can't beat that, right? Getting 1 or 2 free family vacations a year, not too shabby. But Chris, let's talk about actually on vacation, let's say. So, or you're preparing for vacation. This is, I think, where the crowdsourcing comes in, or like those little hacks that that other people don't. Like, what do you do with your itinerary, your plans? Do you have apps? Like, how do you prepare for that? Do you have something that like you have, I don't know, like a capsule wardrobe? I'm picturing like a James Bond style thing with Chris.
It's the go bag.
There's a startup, I can't remember the name of it, that someone I know, it wasn't me, where they would actually send off all their clothes to a place and the luggage would just be there. And at the end of a trip, instead of flying home with their luggage, they would just drop it off at UPS. It'd be gone. It'd all be dry cleaned, and it'd be ready to go to meet them at their next destination.
It sounds high risk. I mean, talk about in-depth customer service conversations when it goes wrong.
But I'll say when I get started, right now, there's a lot of people thinking, where should I go? What should I do? I talk to a lot of people that just don't use Google Flights, which I think is the destination search mode on Google Flights. You could say, I want to leave from this airport. I don't know where I want to go. I'm looking at it. I want to take a 1-week trip in the next 3 months, and I don't want to change planes. And you get a map of the country, or you can drag it anywhere. And so right now I'm looking, and it's, wow, if I want to take a 1-week trip in the next 6 months, I could go to Nashville for $219, or I go to Denver for $57. These are nonstop flights only. So, sometimes I'm flexible on where I go, and I can just kind of drag around the part of the world I want to see and kind of get a sense of where's the best place I could go, what months, what weeks. And I find that every other flight booking site is just obnoxiously trying to, throw stuff in front of you. And Google Flights is just, here's the prices. Here's where you can go for this price this week.
So I'm going to sheepishly admit I've never used Google Flights. So
sorry.
Is that, yeah, I know it's embarrassing. Is that just from the main homepage of Google Flights, or do you have to click anywhere specific?
You go to google.com/flights, and on the bottom right, you say explore destinations, and then you just pick an airport. You say SFO for me, and then you just search, and then boom, it just pops up how much it costs to go to any city. And
those are actually, it's not like a bait and switch. Those are actually bookable, because I've seen that so many. So
no,
at $57, you can book if you wanted to.
Yes. So $57, May 8th to 15th, nonstop from SFO to Denver. I can go book it right now on Frontier if I want. And
that's amazing.
I did not even know this subcategory existed on Google.
Let's say you know where you want to go. You can actually go in the search and you can put SFO. For me, there's SFO, Oakland, and San Jose. There's 3 airports. Let's say I want to go to Chicago. So we're going to actually, I'll give a real example. We have a family reunion this summer in Warrens, Wisconsin, and we could fly into Chicago. We could fly into Minneapolis. We could fly into Milwaukee. Like, there's a lot of places we could fly and rent a car. And we could fly out of Oakland, San Jose, or SFO. So I can go in and put all 3 departure, all 3 arrival, and it'll find the best flight from any of those combinations, which is not something you can typically do. Typically, you say from here to there. But I don't care which airport I'm going to drive 2 hours from. I just care that I'm going to spend $250 instead of $500.
This is cool, man.
That's amazing. That's worth the hour right there. That's
all right. Well, I guess I will talk to you guys later.
Just close it on down. Is there anything comparable, if not through Google, for hotels?
So Google started getting the hotels game in like a non-productized way. You can click when you're on Google Flights and like go to hotels. The interesting thing about hotels is when I'm trying to plan a trip, there's kind of 2 paths you go. Do you want the best price, or do you want the highest likelihood of having a better experience? So TripAdvisor just launched this service called TripAdvisor Plus, I think, which most people don't know. It's pretty new. And right now, in the US, everyone has to have the same price. So Kayak, TripAdvisor, they can't offer a price lower than the hotel offers themselves. They're like contractually obligated. But they're making, anywhere from 8 to 15% commissions when you book a flight or book a hotel through these different agencies. And TripAdvisor came out and said, okay, well, we're actually going to launch a premium service, and we're going to charge a membership fee. And by it being a membership fee, it's not available to the public. And so that means that they're not required to adhere to these same requirements. So I don't love, the idea of paying a membership fee, but for $99 a year, if you chose to, you can go in and you'll get somewhere on the order of 7 or 8% off on your hotels because you're accessing a price that's not available to the public. The flip side to that is there is no way that you could make a hotel like less excited about you coming to stay at that hotel than being someone who booked their flight on or their hotel on TripAdvisor Plus. Like the head of the revenue at that hotel is going to be like, if this person asks for an upgrade, just tell them there's no rooms. So if you want the best experience, you're even better off booking directly with the hotel, emailing the hotel in advance and saying, hey, I just want to tell you I'm really excited about your hotel. I booked it with you guys. I'm coming here for my, honeymoon or just on my anniversary or just to celebrate a birthday. If there's anything you guys can do to make that more exciting or more memorable, that would be great. And that hotel looks and they're like, wow, this is someone who booked directly with us. They're clearly looking to stay with us. They're not just trying to get the best deal they can. And I'm not saying every time you're going to get something, but I can pretty assuredly say you will be more likely to get a great experience or an amenity when you get there or an upgrade if you book directly with that hotel and send them a note than you are if you book through some unknown agency where, as far as they know, you're just another person on a list of people who booked at Kayak.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have identified a system to consistently get offered amenities and upgrades at hotels? Is that what we
That's
just
what I
said
was going to
out
ask. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a system. I haven't traveled enough using said system to validate it, but I think I am surprised constantly by how much hotels reward someone who reaches out to them. Reach out to the sales.
Who do you reach out to? Do you reach out to the general manager? Do you like Google around for an email address, or who do you email?
Whoever's running sales, whoever's the general manager. A lot of time, there's a little hack to find email addresses, but you can also call the hotel and be like, what's an email address that I can get in touch with someone on the sales team? And they'll just give it to you.
Dude, you got to tell us the hack. You can't.
No, the hack is that a lot of times the sales managers all kind of respond to comments on TripAdvisor. So go look at the reviews. Then you see who this general manager is, who's the person that's like outwardly trying to communicate with people to ensure a good experience. Go find that person's email address either by oftentimes just searching their name in quotes or calling the hotel and asking for it, or find them on LinkedIn and email them and say, I'm coming to the hotel. I'm really excited. I wanted to just let you know and tell you I'm really excited. And sometimes they're like, oh, great. And sometimes they're like, cool. And you show up and they're like, oh, there's a note in your system. We'd love to offer you a better view or a nicer room. And it doesn't always work.
Well, but let's just look at this from the other side. Let's just appreciate what's going on here. If someone is spending time on TripAdvisor, that means they're very vested in the reviews on TripAdvisor.
Exactly.
And they've identified, because you're already the type of person that goes out of your way to write a note, their exact goal is to get someone to write a public, external facing note. And so let's understand incentive alignment and why this works. It's a very good thing, but if you understand that, it will allow you to probably turn this from an anecdote into a statistically valid thesis, which is the goal here. Let me add one more on, just while we were talking about Google. It kind of moves us off, but it's kind of in the lifestyle. I think it's one that I've done with my spouse. It's kind of a family-related one. Chris, have you ever noticed, and it's kind of asking you, I guess, but also just maybe I could add this to your list. Like, we like the idea of taking pictures. And we like the idea of our kids are growing up. We want to capture them. And then for a period of time, we just kind of let Facebook or Instagram be the aggregate for a lifetime pictures. And some of us are kind of saying, I have a lot of pictures on Facebook or Instagram. I kind of wish that I had toned that down a little bit, or I probably wouldn't do quite as many this time around. But at its core, it did act as a basic timeline for our life experiences. And, Facebook and Google, et cetera, would serve up, hey, here's what happened last year. What my wife and I did instead of that is we're on the Android platform. Maybe you could do something similar on Apple, but you can actually share photo libraries between two Google accounts. You can do a shared library. So you see all the photos that, your wife takes and vice versa, your family takes, and they can get aggregated into one pile. And then we actually take the advantage of that, and we kind of star our favorites throughout the year from this composite library of the Mendoza family. And then at the end of each year, we create or generate just a family slideshow. So we have two things. And the one extra thing that I didn't mention that should be said on that is Google in particular does a great job. Any picture you take on your phone, upgrade it to a cloud. And for the longest time, they just gave you an unlimited amount. That's a double-edged sword because you end up with a lot of photos of a lot of nothing. But, it works as a holding cell for all these photos. And then if you take the time to once a year say, these are the ones we really want to demo our year, that's our way that we get our family slideshow done each year. So that is my quick little family one. And it would go to, it would just go in that category. But it shows you we all come up with these little things that make our lives easier in some way. Is it experiences? Is it, building out hotels and getting upgrades on a regular basis? But, anything counts.
And Chris, we actually have a question here from Costa who said, Chris, do you see a higher success rate with this hack if you're a member of the member of the company, I'm assuming a rewards member, or have their credit card like Marriott asking for a friend.
Yeah, I mean, when you book with the hotel, and first off, a lot of the times, if you have status or even are a member of the hotel, they just know that. They're looking at this thing, they're like, not only is this a random person who's excited to be at my hotel, they happen to also be someone who's taken the time to sign up for our program. I would say if you already have a lot of status with the hotel, you're probably more likely to get that upgrade no matter what. So, it maybe is a double benefit. I still reach out every time. And sometimes I do funny things. I booked a hotel once for my wife in New York. And just in the comments, I just wrote, I'm booking this for my wife. She likes cheese. And not because she's obsessed with cheese, just for fun. And they literally had a cheese platter waiting for her in her room because they were like, how often does someone give you a piece of information that you can easily do something with? So, I would say having status, of course, helps with everything. And it's they're complementary, but not, exclusively different. But this also works really well with smaller boutique hotels, where you can even email them and say, hey, I just want to make sure I book directly with you. Some of them don't let you book online. And if you book through TripAdvisor, they're paying that 10% commission to someone. Yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, that's cool. I like that. I think, it's funny. This reminds me of it almost sounds like, I don't know, not exactly right to call this a life hack because it sounds like too contrived or Machiavellian, but just being a good person, being a nice person, assuming positive intent, for people, like knowing that when you talk to a customer service rep, that probably 98 of the last 100 people they spoke to were kind of jerks to them, like being a good human. It's amazing how people are going to reach out to you. So again, that's not meant to sound like Machiavellian or like it's a strategy in any way, but I found it's just astonishing how, like, when you make a connection with someone, when you genuinely ask them a question of, hey, how's your day going? Or just somehow try to reach out. Like, people want to go to bat for you, especially in this age of, digital and not too, in the last year, especially about not too many personal connections. Like, man, people are craving that. So anyway, I know it's anecdotal, but I've found that just the last couple of times I've talked to customer service, like I just try to be nice and just try to maybe make their day like 1% better. And I find that it winds up coming around. It's, doing good, doing well type thing.
Totally. Like the power of people that work at the front desk, work at the gate agent, work on customer service, they can do a lot. Sometimes they're like, oh, I want to help you, but my supervisor, isn't going to allow this. But a lot of times they have the discretion to do things. And I can pretty much assuredly say if you get angry, they're not going to exercise that discretion.
Yeah, agreeing.
So be a nice person, but understand where a strategy helps. It's not Machiavellian. Sure. It's just living life in an easier lane. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and kind of open this up to the audience. So if you have a question around a life hack and you want us to kind of tailor this towards something that you've been wondering, is there a better way? We will prioritize your questions and we'll be watching for those in the comments. Please feel free. I have one that I wanted to go ahead and mention that is, seriously, I don't understand how in 2021 not everyone is already doing this, but none of my relatives are. So for the sake of making a public announcement, Chris, talk about a password manager and why everyone needs to be using a password manager.
Gosh. So right now, there have been probably at least a dozen, 24, probably in the last few years, hacks of different passwords from different sites. And unfortunately, it just happens. And, the worst thing you can do is have the same password everywhere. So if we start from a premise of how likely is it that one of your accounts has been posted somewhere and there's a site that's called Have I Been Pawned, PWNED.com. And you can put in your email and you can say, oh, I wonder, how many times has my email address been shown up in a hack? And it's not a good answer. My email has been pawned in 23 data breaches, which means that and if I were using the same password across all of the accounts I have with that email, someone could very easily be like, oh, here's your password to some crazy site that, you don't even use ever. But if it's the same password as your Gmail, now they have access to everything. And so I think the reason to use a password manager is primarily because you don't want to have the same password everywhere. And it's a pain to manage 100, 200, 300, 400 passwords. And so if you accept that risk of 1Password, it sucks if you accept. I actually use 1Password, to be honest. But yeah, so every single password I have for every single site is a totally random long string of things. Every time it's like, what's your mother's favorite, food or whatever question, hit 3 asterisks.
Oh, so you even
every
fake
answer,
those too. Oh, I need to start.
yeah, everything.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to have access to anything of mine. I use 2-factor authentication codes all the time. I use 1Password. I know that there are a lot of options out there. I love it. I can put those 2-factor authentication codes in there as well, so that when I'm logging into a site that needs them, it's just part of the kind of automatic copy paste flow. But it's unbelievable how likely it is that almost everyone listening to this has had their email address and a password they've used stolen. And it's only a matter of time before someone decides on the list of 11 million people to try to test all the sites with yours, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or, your Amazon account or your bank or your email. And so, just I'd say the 2 messages are: use a different password everywhere, use a password manager to manage it, and beef up the security in every way possible with anything that matters, which is your phone, your bank, and your email.
And yeah, since that password manager is saving the passwords and not your brain, you're not limited to 6 or 8 characters. You can up it to 50, 70, 100 characters if you want to, with all sorts of, different upper lowercase numbers, special characters, etc. So that's the nice part about this, is you just need to save and remember your master password. That's the way these operate. And I'm curious, do you have any hacks that you use? I don't know if there's what the answer is going to be to this, certainly, but do you have a safe deposit box that may have your master password in it? Do you tell your wife that master password? What happens if you get hit by a bus? And I guess the secondary part of that question is, do you have a safe deposit box? Is there any hack around that?
I have a fireproof safe in our house. Now, I've been told by others that fireproof safes aren't always fireproof. And so something I've been thinking about is whether I just take a folder, put it in a little safe box, and just give it to my sister. So there's a backup somewhere. I haven't gotten that far. My wife and I are pretty open about these things, so I think she would know where to get it. And there's probably some place where I think I've delegated her in 1Password as my recovery agent. And I think that most of these password management services have the ability to say, this person could get my information, but then if they do, it notifies you. So it's pretty transparent that they're not kind of stealing your stuff. So that to me is something I would definitely recommend. So we have a safe, and here's our estate planning, our will, our trust, here's our passports, here's all that kind of stuff. But I also put that stuff in 1Password. So I have my passport information, I have my driver's license information, I have our whole family social security numbers, just things that I would need access to that I don't want someone else to have access to.
Yep, I do the same thing. And I would just add to that, kind of goes to another life hack. As we were discussing this, Brad, we've talked about legacy binders on the show many times. And part of that is, what if you become incapacitated or were to die? Would your loved one be able to access your financial life? So one of the conversations that would go into that is how would they access the password manager password to make sure they know what's in there and then what to do with that? That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a huge one. We do have a link to that in case of emergency binder at ChooseFI.com/binder. And yeah, that's one that you and I both really highly recommend. Just having that information. That's the in case of getting hit by a bus type thing. I think about all of the information I have stored in my head. And yeah, it's not doing a service to your spouse or significant other.
Well,
right?
speaking of, giving this back to you, Brad, speaking of storing stuff in your head, it's amazing how much you've been able to get out of your head. And I think that would give you a great opportunity to talk about one of your favorite life hacks.
Yeah, I probably sound like a broken record at this point about this, but I use Todoist. That's TODOIST. And there's nothing revolutionary about it by any means, but I have just found that if I offload literally 100% of the tasks that I have in life, anything recurring, down to, if I look at, let's say, my passport, since Chris just brought up passports, and look at the expiration date, and then I say, okay, I need to renew this, 6 months before that. Even if it's 8 years from now, that's in Todoist, and I never need to think about it again. That is the beautiful aspect of this, is any recurring task you have, you can obviously use it for a day-to-day task list. And I certainly do, just, hey, this is what I have going on today. But for me, the beauty is in the recurring tasks. So I never have to think about, oh, you're supposed to change the batteries in your smoke detectors every 6 months. But who really does that? Because you never remember. I don't need to remember anymore. That's the beautiful thing. It's not limited to my little pea-sized brain. I thought of it once and I never have to remember it again. Because again, this system for me, it's not, I use it when I feel like it. I use it 100%. And because of that, I can rely on it. And that to me, again, the actual software, sure, it's nice, but there's nothing revolutionary about it. But it's because I've been so dedicated to it and put everything in there. That is the game-changing life hack for me.
I think that's true of a lot of pieces of software to help you manage things. You can't just use it for an hour and be like, see the magic. But if you kind of say, I'm going to commit to using this for a week or a couple weeks, I see it's so much better. I'm still using the Reminders app on iOS just because I like to be able to say, Siri, remind me to do this in, 6 months. Or
You're
sometimes
still working
there's like
with Siri, huh? She's still making your life easier.
I literally, the only feature of Siri is remind me to do this in, and that's all I got for Siri.
She hasn't come a long way in a decade. Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, not a she anymore, just to be clear. That changed yesterday.
Really?
Literally yesterday? Wow.
They're no longer defaulting voice, and every phone I think comes with 3 new voices.
Okay.
But so far, Siri hasn't really done much more than transcribe my reminders.
Siri, not the world's biggest life hack unless you need to be reminded of something. So good to know. I tell you what, let's see here. I don't know how can we niche down here, but I think this is a great way to kind of push the conversation a little bit. Do you want to let's tackle Larry's first here. Credit cards for discounts for hotels and car rentals. Brad, did you want to start here?
Yeah, Chris, does anything jump to mind with that? I know, like we said, we could spend episodes just talking about credit card rewards points. So, let's kind of steer clear of that. But anything jump out to you as far as like some type of elite status or some such that come? Any hacks you've seen? I know a colleague of mine used to, I think they had a credit card that gave them the top tier elite status at Avis or Budget or whatever, and they would rent the lowest level, economy car and wound up getting whatever car they wanted. Anything jump to mind for that for you?
Yeah, I think when it comes to upgrading, there's a lot of stuff. When it comes to getting discounts, if I'm booking a rental car with Avis, I always use the Costco discount. I bet most people that have a Costco membership don't know that there's Costco discounts on rental cars, and even sometimes on vacations and travel. And so making sure that if you're a member of something, whether it's AAA, whether it's Costco, whether you served in the armed forces, there's likely, even if you work at a big company, right? Like most large companies have codes that you can use. And sometimes I know when I used to work at Google, I could use a Hertz code and it would say, is this for business or pleasure? And you still got the discount. So just making sure any groups you're a part of, you find out whether they have deals just for you. I think that's something. But credit cards seem to be great ways to get extra benefits and upgrades. But outside of the kind of Amex and Chase offers, I haven't seen too many ways to get good discounts. But every now and then, I regularly scroll through. I'm assuming other credit cards have them too, but Chase and Amex in their apps, they have a list of offers. And sometimes they're phenomenal. Like right now, there's an Amex offer that was $100 off a purchase of $100 or more at Best Buy on the Amex Platinum card. So like literally spend $100 and get $100 back. And so I think I bought this microphone that was $100 and got it back for free with an Amex. So scrolling through a lot of those, there's a lot of hotel chains on there and flights all the time where it's spend $200 on Delta and get 60 back and stuff like that. So your credit card might not get you the deal, but your credit card company might activate a deal for your card.
Yeah, that's cool. 2 that jump to mind. This doesn't exactly answer Larry's question here, but for car rentals, autoslash.com is a site I've used in the past, and it seems to be, a little bit better than some of the other search engines I've found. Also, the Airbnb of rental cars is Turo. Turo. This might be commonplace for a lot of people, but many people have never heard of this. So especially now, I've been reading articles that rental car prices are going crazy right now. Literally articles of people renting U-Hauls in Hawaii because all of the rental cars are gone. So Turo is renting a car from an individual. So actually, if this is one of these things, people in the FI community are always looking for, those little ways to win. This might be something you can actually put your car on Turo.
Especially if you live in a popular vacation spot.
Yeah.
I don't know if Richmond is a popular vacation spot right now, but I just realized my second car is a giant. I mean, I didn't realize. I've kind of identified. It's a giant paperweight, right?
Yeah, put it up on Turo. When we were just down in Orlando recently, I rented a car, and just for 2 days, we were going to Disney for a couple of days. We needed a second car, long story, but I just wound up renting. It was like $35 a day or something. It was crazy. And, you can get it delivered to you potentially or meet them. I met the guy at like a gas station, a public place. So yeah, that's a pretty good option. And yeah, I suspect a lot of people haven't heard of that.
I should probably look into that.
Hey, this is Andrew from the ChooseFI team. I hope you're enjoying the show. We're going to get right back to it after these quick messages.
Okay, Brad, I'm going to go ahead and switch gears just slightly. I've got this message from Jessica. Says, life hacks for type A career women and mothers of young children on the path to financial independence. Please send help. So I think we've got two very distinct questions here. And I think we could tackle them individually and put it all together, a smorgasbord of informational goodness. The type A career woman, we don't know, and feel free, Jessica, to weigh in and give us some more details if you want. But I'm assuming it's like this is a career pivot conversation, or it is how do I go farther in the career that I'm currently in? So if we're talking about career opportunities, like this is kind of a rough kind of season right now, people would commonly say. And we did this great episode with you on how to get any job. I'd love for just your kind of hot take on, career pivots and growing your career in a time like this. And if you can address specifically through the lens of type A personalities, that would be a bonus.
So I have an 8-month-old and I am married to a type A career woman, and she would self-describe her as so I'm not speaking in her mind. So, the question is, what life hacks does your wife love is kind of how I'm reading this. So when it comes to careers, definitely listen to the episode. But I think my short version is I don't think employees or kind of career seekers realize the power they have to stand apart by being incredibly passionate about the company they're working at or trying to work for. And a lot of times it's send out lots of resumes. And if you just double down on here's 2 companies I'm interested in, and I'm going to try to find every path in the door. Obviously, you have to be qualified for the role, but it's amazing how much more effective that can be. And as someone who's hired lots of people, there is nothing that I will look for more when I'm hiring someone outside of being qualified to do the job than someone that's really passionate to work at my company or the company that I work at. And man, it's a world of difference. When you guys have probably seen this too, when you hire someone who's passionate about your company and passionate about what you're doing, that can speak worlds to what they're able to do. And I don't think you get that across by just dropping your resume off. So that's one big thing. The other big one is that you can negotiate your salary all the time. And I think people don't often do this, but collect market data. There's lots of sources online, and sometimes just come and kind of present it in a way that says, look, I looked online. This is what I should be getting paid. You're not paying me that. Help me understand. And, I think the CEO at Wealthfront where I work today, it kind of often says, the best way to negotiate sometimes is just put the power in the other person's hand and leave it to them to be forced to make a kind of a harsh, irrational choice or make the kind of fair and understandable choice. And so if you present someone with data that says you're not getting paid as much as you should, they get to choose what to do about it instead of you feeling like you're kind of forcing their hand.
There's something that you said there. I just want to make sure people really grasp this. And it's twofold. Like all of that is predicated on you being indispensable or a rainmaker. Like it's just, varying levels of this. But if that is the case, if you've identified that you're really good at what you do and you drive a lot of value for the company, and that is what guides you into looking to see how are people being compensated that do what you do, knowing that you do it really well, that changes the entire framework from them looking for a reason to get rid of you anyways. And finally you get them like, I'm sorry. The answer will be, I'm sorry. We can't afford to make the changes. Conversely, the other one is, what can we do to keep you? And I think the question really comes back to like, how do we become a rainmaker? How do we become indispensable? And if we don't feel like there's anything, that about us that's unique or indispensable or otherwise, like what would it look like to shift that paradigm as quickly as possible?
Yeah. And I'll harp now on the of young children on the path to FI part, which is how can you, when we had a child, I think some weird thing happened where I was adverse to spending like $1. I'd be like, well, if I drive 2 blocks further, I can park for free on the street instead of pay $1 at the meter. And now I see myself being less kind of frugal or with a child, and it's, we might use this thing, we should buy it. We went really deep on all the things that we needed, and I planned in advance of what we would need. And this works at any age, right? What do we need for a child that's about to be, 2 years old? Almost every parent just wants the stuff that they bought for their child that's outgrown it to go somewhere that's a good home. And I can tell you all the stuff we bought for the first 6 months of our child's life. Like, if we are not going to use it in the future for another child, like, I am less concerned about making the exact best return I can and much more concerned about finding a good home. And so we took a registry, and before we shared it with anyone for a baby shower, I just went deep on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and we filled almost half of our registry for hundreds of dollars from people that were kind enough to give away things that they didn't need anymore. And so that doesn't have to happen before the child comes. It can happen for things you'll need later in life. And it just took some planning, because when you need something and it's, you need it next week, there are not a lot of options. But when you need something and you have a month or two, you have time. And so that's something we did really well for this child, and fortunately saved a lot of money that, helps us increase our savings rate, but not skimp out on not having the things that we wanted to for her.
Yeah, Chris, I love that. And what you said in there, embedded in there, is the long-term mindset, right? Which is the FI mindset. It's, we don't think just in terms of days or next week, what you're scrambling at the last minute, right? It's, we can think long-term. And it's down to even things like I know my wife she's the wonder here in the house with all the life hacks. And I mean, she just does some stuff that it seems obvious once you think about it, but most people don't do this, which is, hey, it's the end of winter, right? And these stores put everything on, winter jackets are on 90% off sales because they want to get rid of them. Well, we kind of know what size our kids are going to need next season. 9 months from now, you can kind of predict. And if you can get something for 90% off, because we're in a position, and this sounds so silly, but because we're in a position where cash flow isn't essential, it's value. It's making right long-term decisions, right? Because we've saved money, because we're on the path to FI, we can think in terms of value. So she's constantly buying things months or years in advance of when we'll need it, because it's going to be needed. It's an absolute certainty. I think I said this actually I'm pretty sure on the upcoming episode we have on your podcast, All the Hacks, is just in terms of buying birthday presents. So like my daughter's in 3rd grade, she has 8 friends. She's going to get invited to 8 different birthdays. If we find one little board game that we like, that's on a massive sale, she's going to buy 8 of them. It's invariable that there are going to be 8 birthday parties. Why not save money? Why not just buy them all now? Then you don't have to scramble for presents. That's another thing that people are constantly doing. They're last minute scrambling. You talk about one of the biggest hacks is saving time, right? I mean, because a lot of these hacks come down to, hey, I don't need to scramble at the last minute for fill in the blank. For food, it's 5:30 p.m. We have to eat dinner. Do I need to scramble, or did I meal plan? Do the kids need a birthday present for this party? Do I need to run out to Target and waste 45 minutes of my time? Or did I plan 9 months in advance, or even 3 weeks in advance? So I think a lot of this is the intersection of long-term thinking and time savings, frankly.
Yeah, I have no affiliation with this company, but we just paid for a program called Solid Starts, which is all about baby-led weaning, which is introducing your child to food. And my wife was sitting here for the first few days trying to come up with a meal plan, trying to come up with this. And I think we paid under $75. I can't remember the exact amount for this guide. And we literally have, I can't remember, 100-day plan for meals. It's literally a meal plan for the next 100 days for our daughter. And we don't have to think about it at all. And it's funny, my wife and I are sometimes so optimizing that we were like, wow, why would we pay for this? Like, all the content's free. It's all over the internet. And then we paused and we were like, for $65, we can stop spending like 3 hours every other day making a menu and going to the store. And it was like the best use of money. And that time has been gotten back in the first week. And I always like to think that there's something you can do with your time. If you struggle like I have in the past with how much your time is worth, I know, just because you make X salary and work X hours doesn't mean you can add more hours at that rate. I tend to put it in my head that at any point in time, if I wanted to, I could go take my car out and I could start driving for Lyft. And in that circumstance, I would make, let's call it $20 an hour in the Bay Area, at least. And pick anything, whether you want to go grocery shop or deliver food or something. There's always like at least a bare minimum number of what your time is worth. And don't forget that, because, in this case, 60 something dollars is like 3 hours of driving for Lyft. If it really was about the money, I would much rather go drive for Lyft for 3 hours and never think about meal planning for our daughter than have to do it for a few hours every week. And to be clear, my wife was doing a lot of that thinking, and I literally was like, please spend this money, which is something she doesn't hear me say often. But yeah.
There's a first for everything.
I want to weigh in with a couple of things, 'cause I know my wife, this is like her jam. So a couple of things that we've kind of landed on as best practices is for baby clothes, let's try to stay gender neutral. Just please, as gender neutral as possible. Buy nothing group. So I'm going to share a screen here for those of you that are watching the video for this. There is a organization called the Buy Nothing Project. This is my other tab that I want to show you guys just a second here. BuyNothingProject.org. They're all across the country. You can find a Buy Nothing group near you. My wife made out like a bandit with kids' clothes on the Buy Nothing group. When we were in our other neighborhood, it was super active. When she came out to this end of Richmond, there was nothing going on. So she actually got involved with the group and woke it up. And the ROI there was incredible because she basically was able to generate like just toys and clothes for years worth. Unbelievable how little we've actually spent on children's clothes to this point. And then to dial it up even further, the neighbor exchange. She cultivated good friendships with 2 to 3 neighbors with kids that are 6 months ahead or a year otherwise. And so I just see my kids' clothes in other people's houses, and the reverse of that, we're constantly getting hand-me-downs at these certain age groups. They wear them for a few months and then they go off to the next family. Pure efficiency. And there's just the 3 families that are involved in this. That's just what it is. Cardboard boxes. Are you kidding me? When you get something big, do not just cut it up and then put it in the recycling and let it go. That is a week's worth of entertainment. A solid week's forts are meant to be built from large boxes. So please do that. And then if we want to dial it up a little bit further, and this is an advice I believe we got from Jillian Johnsrud, Everyday Courage podcast host. And she made this recommendation and we've taken her up on this. We switch out toys. Kids get bored of the things they've had. Jillian does it on a quarterly basis. We do it twice a year. We go and we grab the ones that they're not looking at anymore and we throw them inside of a big bin and put them in the attic. Let's bring them back down in 6 months. They're going to be raving over these things again and we'll get some more life out of them. The last one I have here, and this is because I literally went to Doug and Carol and pleaded with them to make this book for the FI community, was Raising Your Money Savvy Family. And they released this book this past year. And Brad, it's on the shelf behind you as well for people. It is a phenomenal book on how to incorporate these FI lessons to your kids at all ages. It really needs to be a part of any of these conversations. And it's done from the perspective of, Doug is the parent writing it with his daughter, Carol, now an adult. And she has kids now, and they're talking through what dad tried to teach me, what my interpretation was, what worked, what didn't work. And it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal packaging of these ideas, and it's very relatable. So definitely check that out. We'll have the link in the description for this episode, but it's called Raising Your Money Savvy Family. So those are just a few of my quick hit items, and I hope that answers your question, Jessica.
Yeah, one last one.
Go ahead.
The moms groups are phenomenal. I joined some of the dad groups, and it was like, hey, how's it going? And then I joined the moms groups and it's, here's my database of strollers. Here's how you could pick this. Here's this. And unfortunately, a lot of the active moms groups aren't dad friendly, but some are. And so, if you're a dad out there listening and want to network, that can sometimes be a great place to go. Some of them have evolved to be parent groups, but ones with the history of being a mother's group seem to have more content and more helpful feedback and history of posts than some of the dads groups, which are like, who's hanging out, which is my goal is to find stuff, to share stuff and be helpful. So yeah.
You're right, man. If you can tap into a group that's tapping into your local community in terms of here are the opportunities, here's the cool stuff that's going on. That's another one too. Find local community groups. Parenthood is full of activities. So time to up all of our collective game.
All right, we got another question coming through, and this might help us segue into maybe some meal planning, things like that. Do you have any kitchen life hacks that jump out to you?
Man, I have a list that I'm collecting of all these hacks, and then under food, I have so many ... come back to this. So I will say, there are so many small hacks that I won't go into everyone about, which food you keep in a paper bag to help ripen faster, what you keep in the fridge or not. So I won't go to those because I don't have a great list in my head. But the meal planning thing is probably our biggest kitchen hack, which when it comes to cooking is that we use this app and it is maybe the most expensive app I've ever purchased, which is crazy, called Paprika.
That is not the most expensive app that you purchased.
I've purchased
It might
on,
be the
it's
most
like,
expensive. Yeah.
I think on iPad or iOS or Mac, something is like $20, which is a lot for, an app for a lot of people. I find that the push to free has gotten a lot of people to look at software. $30 for the app for your computer. The idea of paying $30 for a recipe manager, I think for a lot of people is crazy.
I use Paprika and I really like it. I don't think
I totally agree. I've saved. I would definitely drive around for Lyft for an hour and 15 minutes to be able to have this app for the rest of my life.
I just defended them on the price, but now to go back the other way and not defend them a little bit more, they do charge you per each type of device, and that's a little frustrating. So for those of you that have different workflows that involve your iPad, your Android phone, and your MacBook, and then you're like, I should probably have it on the desktop as well, you're going to be very angry at the pricing. But for those of you that are like one device on an Android, maybe, it's not that bad. So it's just, you got to kind of work through. To be clear, it's not per device. It's per operating system. It's just, I've never seen that before, and it's unique to this platform. But I will say the app, once you get into it, very good, very good.
So we use this in multiple ways. Both, what are we going to, saving recipes, which many apps do. We use it to plan the meals for the week. We use it to go to the grocery store. Small feature not everyone knows is that if two people have the app open at the same time, you can simultaneously check things off at the grocery store. So my wife and I will go around the grocery store, both logged into the app at the same time, and I'll start checking things off and she'll check things off, and in real time it syncs with each other. So it's a very productive grocery store run. Before we had a child, now I am the grocery store. I am the king of the grocery store. My wife hates the grocery store, so we don't get to use that hack too much. But we have all of these things categorized. We rate them. We plan it out for the week. I can't tell you how much better our cooking experience has been, especially over the last 18 months when there's a lot of staying at home. I can't endorse this app enough.
All right, so let me just, for people to truly visualize, as a user, I agree with you. This would be on my list as well. Go find any recipe we all want to make some. You know how when you buy a cookbook and you like the idea of the cookbook, you like the pretty pictures, but then you go to make it and you realize, there's a lot of space here between this beautiful picture with all of this copy and that finished dish. I need to write it down. I need to check to see what I have. I need to go to the store and then to check it off. And then I need to come back and then I need to go back and I need to match it all up. And what page was it on? All right. We just don't really enjoy that. So instead, you're looking through Pinterest and you're looking at the pretty pictures of all the different food groups on Pinterest. You click on one, or maybe Google suggests a recipe for you. It's on your browser right there in front of you. And you just copy the URL into Paprika and you say download, and it aggregates the entire recipe into core ingredients inside this app. Then you take that app on your phone, you go to your cabinets and you say, well, I've got this XYZ, so I don't need those. And then it takes a combination of the 5 or 6 recipes that you just did this to and aggregates them by department where you'd likely find them. You have one consolidated grocery list and you're at the store. So you're saving time on that end as well. And, there's more functionality there, but that totally streamlines the breakdown in cookbooks. I still end up buying cookbooks. I rarely end up using cookbooks. I just end up using Paprika paired with Pinterest. Super powerful. I feel like there's some sort of alliteration there that we should lean into.
That's cool. We got a comment here from our good friend Stephen Boyer from ChooseFI. And actually, ChooseFI's, Jonathan, you'll be happy to know, are running again. He's got one coming up in Virginia here next month, which is pretty cool. I might be stopping by. So ChooseFI.org for anybody who's interested. Stephen said, if there's something you do often, for example, cook eggs for breakfast, keep all the items you use physically together, pan, spray butter, spoon, bowl to mix, plate, etc., so you don't have to open a bunch of different cabinets to grab everything separately. I like that. Just a little optimization.
You have your little, wait, Brad, let's talk about your cinnamon life hack here. Let's make sure your cinnamon life hack makes it on the show.
Yeah, this is the most ridiculous, it's not even close to 1% better, but yeah, when I was making smoothie,
1% better, but that's how optimized your life was, is this was all that was left,
Yeah, this is what was left. Now, it was, you think about junk drawer you had, we would have a drawer of all of the little measuring spoons, and invariably there were 30 of them and there were multiple sets, just ridiculousness. And I'd have to wade through it every morning to find whatever it was, the quarter of a teaspoon. So what I just did was, very simply, I separated the quarter teaspoons and the teaspoons. It was quarter teaspoons and tablespoons. That's what it was, actually. I remember now. So I had one junk drawer of the other remaining 25. And then I had a nice beautiful oasis with my quarter teaspoons and the tablespoons. And every morning when I was making my smoothie, I would grab one of each of those. So, is that a life-changing life hack? No, obviously it's not. But it's just like one of those little things, like look for pain points. And this doesn't mean look for all the things that are awful in your life, because you're probably not going to be too terribly happy, but look for these tiny little pain points. Is there a time that you can invest a little bit of time to come up with either a fix for it or just a nice, simple system that you will never have that pain ever again? Even down to something stupid like, again, junk drawers. We have all of these. Like we had markers, we have young daughters as well. And they've got Sharpies, they've got markers, they've got pencils and pens. And it was all in this one drawer. And I just bought a couple little, or my wife bought a couple of little organizing things and we just separated them. And then as long as, again, this goes back to the Todoist thing, as long as everyone 100% abides by that organization, it stays there forever. You invest the time once and it's done. So I think, as you can tell, I get a little animated about this. I think that's just like such a critical
need to make sure
aspect.
people realize how important this is. I mean, that's
you can't backslide on the system. It's all
we
all for
agreed
naught.
on the system. No, we didn't, Dad. You told us what the system was. We didn't agree. We had a conversation.
We had a deal.
I'm sorry.
I've got one other one here. Actually, Holly wrote in, Chris, when I sent out to our bi-weekly newsletter that you were coming on. So Holly wrote in, have a separate freezer. Then you can buy meter items in bulk or when they're on sale and have them available whenever you want to eat them. And I find this is a massive one. Like we bought, right? Like a deep freezer for like $100, one of those like chest freezers, and it's there forever. It's amazing.
I don't know if it works for the minimalist out there. For the rest of us, yes.
When we moved into this house, they had just renovated the kitchen and they basically turned a room into the kitchen and left a second fridge, and like total unlock. We moved all the drinks to the fridge part, and then we moved everything into the freezer, and we left one area open for that like inevitable thing you're cooking that needs the fridge and it's big and you're like, do I want to rearrange everything? So if you can swing an extra fridge or freezer, it's amazing.
I've played around with a couple like kind of kitchen, and it's not so much a kitchen hack as much how much time do you spend in the kitchen. And we have pushed the limits of the whole once a month meals, which was very extreme. That's a lot.
What do you mean once a month?
Literally one day, one weekend, you create all the meals for the month. It's a full Saturday in the kitchen. And then but you do basically have meals for the remaining month. We did it a couple times, but you really began to dread that full on day or two in the kitchen. So we've kind of toned back on that. So now we kind of go more for like cook 2 to 3 meals a week. Does that make sense? 2 to 3 dinners. Brad, I think it's probably closer to what you and Laura do.
Yeah, that sounds very similar.
Yeah, so but this is a hack. Eat your dang leftovers. Leftovers are there for a reason. Like, who are the people out there that don't do leftovers? Is that even a thing anymore? But I know they're out there. And in that case, you need to be grounded and anchored to the rest of us that are living on
That
this.
just got Chris animated too. What do you got?
I intentionally, in Paprika, scale every meal up.
Of course you scale them up. Of course you do. Who are these people that are making for 3 individuals, 2 individuals? Who would take the time to create a meal for 2 people?
Yeah.
You're
We
never
make
gonna be
this
hungry
one
again?
pad thai dish, and it's the one that got the most. I think I scaled it to a 6X once because I was like, I might as well, like, I can
Glad
eat
you
this
said that.
all week.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, then that's another thing about paprika is the scaling function is built right in there. So I don't even want to think about what the ingredients are going to do. Of course, I'm going to make it 2 to 3 times X. Like, why would I waste the time in the kitchen if it didn't provide for the next 2 to 3 days?
Yeah, if you're making lunch, you're doing it wrong.
Totally doing it wrong. This is huge. Please come away with this, people. One other thing, it doesn't work for everybody, but I should throw it out there. And I'm not doing it right now, so full disclosure, but we are talking about time in the kitchen. For all of last year, basically, I got in the habit of doing a single day fast once a week. Single day fast once a week. One day, just a water and a caffeine, but that was me. I'm not saying that's prescriptive. It was water diet for one day a week. And I mean, it was just the time that it freed up. It's crazy how much time that gives you back when that one day you're just kind of focusing on, I'm my most productive. It doesn't work if you have a very physically active type day lined up. So I would plan it around one where I'm in a mostly sedentary, locked at a computer terminal type deal. You know, that was my way of handling it. And one that I'm doing a lot of calls because you just don't have as much time. So that would be the way that I would do it. But it worked pretty well and it minimized my time in the kitchen during that period.
I did it for 5 days and it was like the most productive week on earth. I didn't think about breakfast, lunch, or dinner or snacks for 5 days straight. I didn't find the physical thing to be too much of a challenge. I think I even went on a run one of the days.
What? 5 days? Sorry, we're not doing a fasting conversation.
Yeah, this is
No.
totally
We're not
separate.
going deep. I'm just saying,
I've got
from
a good
hack standpoint, I didn't pay for food for 5 days.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that was cool.
No kidding.
I've got a good segue out of our fasting conversation to choices, really. I think that's a lot of what we're talking about is there a way to cut down on the number of options you have, the choices, like the mental overwhelm? I find that works really well for me when it comes to food. So I eat the same breakfast every single day, never fail. It's just 365 days a year. And I don't have to think about it, because I find the meal that perplexes me the most for whatever reason is lunch. It's this like paradox of choice. I have so many options, but then I have none, and it's what the heck do I do? So anyway, like I need to get just a system down for that. And we actually got a comment similar about cutting down on choices from Leslie. This is a totally different aspect of life, but capsule wardrobe. She said, I'm not fashion minded, but I need to look professional for my job. I created a capsule wardrobe from my existing closet by, quote, pretending I was packing for a 3-week trip to my normal life. And I've been using this capsule for over a year, and it has cut down on my frustration significantly. And I love that. Again, look for these pain points, right? Are there ways where you can just like, I don't know, put it on a glide path? Like, Chris, does that resonate with you? Anything jump to mind that you do where like you have cut down on options or cut down on choices? Sorry to put you on the spot for that.
I know.
You keep thinking about it. Let me weigh in here. Just a couple of things.
Okay.
Look, do you see these t-shirts? Like, this happened over time. It's not like I'm not claiming the Steve Jobs mantle or anything, but I'm just saying Brad showed me this one t-shirt that was very comfortable. He can give you guys a link if you're interested. I tried the t-shirt. It was the best t-shirt I ever found. And so I just bought, 6 to 8 of them. Total cost like sub $30. These t-shirts are so unbelievably inexpensive. And like, I never make a t-shirt choice again. Now I'm in an interesting place where I never need to wear a shirt and tie generally, but maybe a lot of us are that didn't feel like that was possible a year ago. We're all working from home. So, but I don't know if it would say it's a capsule wardrobe, but it's like when it goes to decision fatigue, it's probably going to be a kind of bland t-shirt, and it's going to be very comfortable, and that's going to be good enough for me.
I got one. To cut back, I just did this, and it wasn't actually intentional, but it was fantastic. So I have all my shirts in one place, all my t-shirts. And after doing the laundry, we set them one place. And I didn't put them in the drawer. I set them in another area. And then I was like, oh, you know what's interesting? I'll just wait 3 weeks, and whatever shirts are still in the drawer are gone. So I basically have gone through a long enough cycle of I keep wearing stuff that's like in this pile. So obviously I don't care about the stuff in this pile. And so now I'm like, okay, now maybe I'll use that extra space for like socks or some other article of clothing so that I can figure out what are the things you truly never need. I kind of have this mentality that's very hard for me to deal with as a frugal person. But if you're not going to use this thing, if you haven't used it for 6 months, like, you don't need it. And I struggle with that because there's one item that my wife and I would agree on, which is this raclette grill that is like this Swiss thing that you like cook meat on the top and cheese on the bottom. And we've had it for like 7 years.
Your wife does love cheese, I remember, right?
I know.
You
We've had it for almost 7 years. And every time my wife's like, we haven't used this in the last 6 months. I'm like, we're going to have a dinner party. We're going to use it and it's going to be great. And it's probably been like 7 years still. And I'm like, I played the COVID card for the last 2 years, but I think it's close to time to get rid of it.
Oh, did you say the COVID card for the last 2 years? Are we talking 2 years now? Like the COVID card is a 2-year stamp?
Well, I mean, at least for the purposes of saying you've got to throw this thing out for dinner parties that you haven't used. I'm like, yeah, that's not my fault. There's been a pandemic. The raclette grill must stay.
Okay. Brad, is it my turn, dude? I got a question teed up here. I'm ready to. All right, here we go. This is from Karen. Karen says, huge fan, taking your FI course to the co-op and taught it. It's been a lot of fun. My daughter is getting ready to graduate, has an entrepreneur mindset. Do you have any ideas or hacks for her? And just as, adding some information here, she hates the idea of college. All right. So
that's right in your wheelhouse.
Right in my wheelhouse. But I'm going to first give Chris the floor to weigh in. Because I think there's actually probably got some good stuff here. And we'll have a great conversation around this.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous that nowadays there are so many opportunities to learn, both hands off, listening to stories of companies, listening to, different courses, like Y Combinator has a whole course called Startup School that you can watch for free. but also where you can just get your hands dirty. Like you could go intern at young ages. Like I've definitely seen people do, high school internships at startups, offering to help, offering to do anything. And I think ultimately the hardest thing is being able to tangibly identify something you can do. You can't go and say, give me a job, I'll work for free. You could say, this is the thing that I will do. But going to get experience at any age would really help scratch that itch, and just be really open-minded to the fact that starting something doesn't have to be your full-time job also. I just started a podcast. It's not a company. It scratches my entrepreneurial itch, but I still have my job. And so, you don't have to give up your entrepreneurial spirit. It's not a mutually exclusive trade-off, right? You might not want to go to college. Maybe that's not for you, but like college plus entrepreneurial thing, those aren't, you could do both. You can have a job and be an entrepreneur on the side. And so if you're not sure what it is yet, you can kind of explore it while doing something else also.
Yeah. I want to say the thing that struck me that I did not realize is, and it goes to your point, you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, is how valuable skills are. And being able to take what Chris talked about earlier, bring that enthusiasm and passion for what potential employer's goals are, and bring your skills to that. The safety box, just create a sandbox. Doesn't even need to have a profit potential at this point to learn skills. You don't need college's permission to learn skills. You can do that very inexpensively. Try a bunch, see what lights you up. And then is there a way that you can take those skills and get some experience, either paid through an employer or through some sort of volunteer opportunity? You do not have to go to college anymore to make $60,000, $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year plus. You do not need college to get a tech job anymore. You do not need college to have an incredible above median income, and you don't need student loan debt to pull it off. So that would be just kind of like I did this. I created a little sandbox to talk about this topic a little bit more. It's a Talent Stacker podcast, and there's 5 episodes up there right now. And we actually, as a result of literally, I was just starting that conversation, and I talked with Bradley Rice, who's in the financial independence community, because he himself had actually kind of bridged this gap and created a little name for himself, a place for himself in the Salesforce ecosystem. And he was working with a bunch of people just kind of here and there to help them land jobs. And he really helped me identify, you don't need a college degree at all to transfer into this industry, and you don't need coding experience. So we actually built a job placement program around that. And I'm not going to we've had whole episodes on that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but Karen, specifically for you, have your daughter check out just this free 5-day challenge, because this is a great way that she can actually find out about this industry and see if this opportunity might be something that she would be interested in. And so just go to ChooseFI.com/Salesforce, and you can find all the information there. But this is a skill-based industry. It's super hot. It's in demand. And there's this free 5-day challenge that's really there for you just to help show you more about it. So the largest point just for everybody, though, generally listening to this, is skills are more valuable than degrees. That's never been more true than it is today. And it's never been easier to get skills that employers are desperate for. If you can pair that with the passion that Chris described earlier, you can have any job you want. Absolutely any job you want.
Yeah, that's a pretty good overview, Jonathan. I think, like we've talked about, there's lots of different options, and college is not, it seems like increasingly it's not as required. And Chris, in your neck of the woods, you've seen Google has come out with their certificate programs. I know there are lots of coding boot camps. It's what can you do? It's not what is that degree necessarily. And that doesn't mean that this has changed overnight, or that it's, the 4-year college degree is ever going to go out of style. But it's increasingly obvious that it's important. Do you have skills? Can you prove that you have those skills? Can you start from day one, or do you need to learn on the job? And I mean, you're always going to have to learn on the job. Right? I mean, that's just the way the world works. But yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder, do you have any thoughts on that from, the part of the country that you live in Silicon Valley? Like, are you seeing changes, or is this overblown?
No, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily important. Like, I didn't care when we were hiring people where they went to school. There are certain jobs where that's a proxy for some things, and then there's certain jobs where it doesn't matter at all. A friend of mine started I don't know if it's a company or a program called On Deck, beondeck.com. And they've put together all these programs for people that want to really accelerate different aspects of life, whether it's creating courses online or starting a company and that kind of stuff. And I just think that's kind of a way to learn now. I saw this crazy chart of like average income of American households and the average cost of Harvard tuition. And it was like Harvard was like skyrocketing and income was kind of flat, and like college has just gotten astronomically expensive. And so, sure, there's some hacks to start saving in a 529 early, but if you're fortunate to be able to do that, but there's also plenty of ways to avoid needing to necessarily go to college for different programs or delaying it, or, whatever works best for whatever path you want to take.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, I tell you what, I think that's all I had for you. Brad, any final question?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously, Chris, we could probably do 5 of these episodes, and we'd love to have you back certainly at some point in the not too distant future if you'd be up for it. But I guess, any other hacks that jump to mind? Like, I know obviously your life has changed a little bit in terms of what you've been working on in terms of hacks and things like that. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Oh, talk about automating your finances for a second here. Let's come back to this one, man.
Yeah, I mean, we said we weren't going to talk about money because it's always a topic, but I think that, outside of what I even do, automation is just this magical thing. Whether it's setting your bills on bill pay, whether it's, automating payments, like we have an au pair and we automate the payment to her, not because it's a pain to pay her every week, but just because I don't want to think about it. And so, one of the things that I kind of wanted to work on, which drew me to coming to work at Wealthfront, was financial automation. And we had this vision for self-driving money, which was this idea that imagine if your paycheck could get direct deposited to an account and you could automatically pay your bills, automatically fund all of your savings goals, top up your emergency fund, et cetera. And you never had to worry or think about anything. And last week we finally shipped that, and to the, almost the entire company in some way touched that. And you can literally select an account to monitor, whether that, you could direct deposit into our cash account or monitor another account, and say anytime there's over $10,000 or $5,000, whatever your number is, sweep that to savings. And you can create this automated savings plan that says, well, let's first make sure there's always $4,000 in my emergency fund. And if that dips down below 4, prioritize that and change that. Go to wealthfront.com/cash. This is a little older, but yeah, you can scroll and see this plan we've built. So top up my emergency fund. And then after that, let's fill everything out in my down payment fund, or let's put $200-$300 a month there. And so the designers built this amazing animation screen that's coming right here where it's automated, and it just fills everything up. So then save in my IRA, then save in my taxable account, and imagine a world where your paycheck comes in and you can leave enough to pay your bills, and automatically everything goes wherever you want and you never have to think about it. And that's the kind of world that I think should exist. And I'm excited. Like, I love working on this. Someone asked a question in the chat about what's more important, the path or the end result. Like, in this case, I get to do both. I get to help people find their way down to the path of financial independence, for my job. So I've kind of like no longer, care is the wrong word, but the idea of not working is like not interesting, because what I do during the day is what I'm excited about. And so getting to work on products that optimize people's finances, it doesn't really feel like work. And so, my big FI message to lots of people is always, don't worry about the retire early, because if you find something you're passionate about, you could choose to do that. And I happen to know that I could make a lot more money working at Facebook than, a lot of other companies in Silicon Valley, but I wouldn't get to work on something I love. And that's what financial independence is, not needing to necessarily take the job that pays more because you love the job that might pay less. And obviously we're, in Silicon Valley, you work at startups, there's always, growth potential for the company. So it could all work out. But, for me, it's about working somewhere where I can do what I love.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. So people listening to this and they want to hear what you've put together, they want to find out more, they'd love a refresher or maybe an introduction to all the hacks. What's the best way for them to catch up with you and with your content?
Yeah, so allthehacks.com. Right now we're probably, depending on when you listen to this, rolling out a handful of episodes on every kind of aspect of your life and how to upgrade and optimize it. And I always say it's not a show about finding a deal on the Motel 8. It's probably a show about finding a way to stay at that luxury hotel for a lot less, and really focused on not spending money, but having a better life experience. So each week we'll dive into an episode with someone who knows more than I do, so I can go continue my quest to learn all the hacks, and hopefully from time to time I can pop back over here and share some of them.
That's awesome, man. I mean, the longer we think about this, the more I keep coming up with, like, people, are any of you men getting your hair or women getting your hair cut at home? Anybody doing that? Anybody just recognizing the pure time savings that are out there? Just, I made sure I
Funny, I had that on my list of things that my hacks to talk about tonight is home haircuts. So yeah, that's a good one.
It's not the money, it's the time.
It's the time.
I know. There's no one that lives in my home that I think would be able to cut my hair.
My wife did scalp me that first time. It definitely happened. All right, my friends.
I trust my wife almost exclusively, but
All right, my friends. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. The fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
If this episode was helpful to you, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends about us. We can be found on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. While you're there, don't forget to check out our other shows like Everyday Courage with Jillian Johnsrud and Rebel Entrepreneur with Alan Dalnigan. If you would like a free bite-sized course to jumpstart your financial independence, check out ChooseFI.com/challenge. ChooseFI is produced by Andrew Mendonza and Zachary Tan and is a production of ChooseFI Media Incorporated. ChooseFI.com is managed by Annie Shealy with William McVeigh, M.K. Williams, Melissa Lagerquist, Liz Kessler, Stephen Hettig, Kelly Black, and Jennifer Ma. And Ed T is our CEO. Thanks for listening.